Tonight, an abduction nightmare in the heart of the city. A girl on a school excursion dragged away.
48 hours of treacherous wild weather. 135,000 lightning strikes leave homes without power.
Victoria's Christmas chaos, rail, 000 and police in a season of industrial strife.
A shattering injury blow for a top bulldog.
An Aussie cricket star banned from a pro-Palestinian stand in the Perth Test.
And a new medical emergency for music legend Jimmy Barnes.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Maddern and Mike Amor.
Good evening. Police are hunting for a would-be child abductor tonight after a 14-year-old schoolgirl was dragged into a lane in the heart of the city.
The Year 9 student was grabbed from behind during a mid-morning excursion.
Snatched on a school excursion in the centre of the city.
He grabbed my arm and he tried to pull me closer to him.
The Year 9 student was walking down Hosier Lane with classmates around 10:30 in the morning when police say this man grabbed her and began dragging her away.
He started to talk about how I was very pretty. All I could think about was how hard he was holding on to me.
A Good Samaritan in his early 20s saw what was unfolding and pretended to be the girl's teacher, forcing the attacker to let her go.
He's intervened in a way that was inobtrusive and quite subtle and allowed him to take the young person away from that situation.
The first thing she did is call her mother.
It was horrific to get that phone call and she was hysterical at that point.
They immediately went to police about the November attack, but it took detectives a month to notify the public that a dangerous predator could be prowling the CBD.
We've certainly exhausted all avenues of inquiries and now it's time for us to come to the public and ask you guys for help so that we can try and find this person.
The wanted man and his female friend were last seen on Flinders Lane and Russell Street.
He seemed like he was under the influence of something. I don't think he was really aware of what he was doing.
Police are keen to speak with both, as well as the mystery Good Samaritan who may have saved a young girl's life.
If not for him, we don't know what the outcome could have been.
And Cassie Zerbos has the latest from Hosier Lane. Cassie, detectives are closing in.
Well, Mike, police say since going public this morning, they have received several leads, but as we go to air, the man is still on the run. Officers will continue to patrol Hosier Lane and throughout the CBD to reassure the community. And they're also appealing to any other witnesses who saw the attack to come forward, including the Good Samaritan who saved the girl. Mike.
Cassie, thank you.
Melbourne is in the middle of a thunderstorm asthma alert, with health authorities warning sufferers to stay inside until at least 8 o'clock tonight. Right now, storm cells are bearing down on the metro area after more than 100,000 lightning strikes since midnight.
An epic light show in the night skies above Melbourne. Since midnight, more than 135,000 cloud-to-ground strikes have rained down across the state, leaving tens of thousands of homes without power. And it's not over yet.
We're expecting to see potential supercell storms over metropolitan Melbourne.
They could produce more damaging wind gusts, large hail and flash flooding ahead of a cold wind change.
We do have a high risk forecast for epidemic thunderstorm asthma across large sections of the state. So that includes the central region of Victoria, so that includes metropolitan Melbourne.
Those with asthma are being warned to stay indoors until the danger has passed. So far today, there have been dozens of call-outs to emergency services after severe storms ripped through the Otways.
A actual mini tornado windstorm.
SES crews left to clean up after several trees came crashing down, while ferocious winds and pelting rain forced workers to take cover at this cattle farm in Barwon Downs.
This is our little deck. Chairs thrown all over the place. Here's the table that got thrown into the window.
Last night's sudden downpours wreaking more havoc on the roads. An unsuspecting motorist caught out by flash flooding under the city's notorious underpasses as city commuters brace for round 2 tonight.
That will ease into the evening and move into Gippsland, and then overnight into East Gippsland.
And Sonia Marinelli is tracking developments. Sonia, there's a number of warnings in place right now.
There sure are, Beck. Just in the last couple of hours, we've seen several storm cells firing up over Melbourne, including one that just rolled through here where I am in the western suburbs. And as we go to air tonight, a large part of central and eastern Victoria remains under threat of that severe thunderstorm activity. As for the risk of thunderstorm asthma, well, that will start to wind back, Beck, from around 8 p.m. tonight. So there is relief on the way.
OK, Sonia, thank you.
The Allen government is facing a season of industrial disruption, fighting pay battles on 3 fronts. 000 call centres will soon join police and V-line workers who walked off the job this morning, leaving passengers stranded.
For 3 essential services, 'tis the season for industrial strife. 000 call takers the latest to take action.
Strikes are all about causing disruption, so Christmas time, everyone's busy, everyone wants to get around.
V-line workers strike over job security and conditions between 3 and 7 this morning, forcing thousands onto slower replacement buses.
It does annoy me because public transport has never been reliable.
V-line trains resumed just before 8 a.m, but with flow-on delays most of the day, many passengers just gave up.
There was a lot less, and I think everyone was just being precautious and either working from home or driving.
V-line had urged passengers not to use their trains all day.
Asking people not to take trains, I thought that was a bit over the top.
We'd normally run around 380 services, so around 90 services will be cancelled during the course of today.
At this stage, the union has no further action planned, but it won't rule it out.
We won't hesitate to keep fighting.
From Monday, Esther emergency call workers start short work stoppages to campaign.
This won't affect any responses to patients or to the public at all.
Workers want pay rises and minimum staff levels so we don't return to staff shortages which cost lives during the pandemic.
We're here to save lives, and that's the most important thing.
And the police dispute continues with no negotiations now for 15 days. No industrial peace and goodwill this Christmas. Nick McCallum, 7 News.
A disgruntled plasterer has been jailed for 22 years for a revenge kidnap attack. Jian Gangji broke into his boss's Blackburn home, tied up his wife and abducted the couple's 2 young children. He demanded $1 million payment for their return before police found the children nearby. G is likely to be deported to China after his prison term.
Bulldog superstar Bailey Smith has suffered a season-shattering injury at training. Mitch Cleary has the fallout from Whitten Oval tonight. Hello, Mitch. Smith is facing major knee surgery.
Beck, it's a devastating blow. Smith's 2024 season over before a ball had even been bounced. Scans at lunchtime confirming the worst, a ruptured ACL after an innocuous training incident here at the club this morning. Smith this afternoon leaving his 340,000 Instagram followers with this message, well, she'll be right. The injury comes just a few weeks after he won the Bulldogs time trial and had been preparing to return to his best to prove the doubters wrong after a frustrating 2023. Now he may have played his last game for the club. Next year, the final season of his current contract. Clubs like Geelong, Hawthorn and even reigning premiers Collingwood circling the AFL's most marketable player. Beck?
OK, Mitch Cleary, thank you.
The Allen government is being accused of leaving Melbourne's booming growth suburbs behind, with debate raging on the suburban rail loop. Critics say Melbourne's north and west have been forgotten as the southeast cashes in.
They're the rapidly growing suburbs where cars are continually chosen over buses and trains.
These are the people that are being forgotten by the suburban rail loop. The government's choice has been to spend $35 billion on a rail line from Cheltenham to Box Hill, and that choice has neglected the people in our growth areas.
The suburban rail loop has been widely criticised as too expensive. That had the minister on the morning defensive.
And you had experts from Melbourne University, and I'm quoting from an article from The Age on the 10th of August 1968, describing the Melbourne Underground Rail Loop as a serious mistake.
But growing suburbs in the city's north and west have raised questions about if the money could be better spent. By 2036, Wyndham's population is expected to rise by 40% to 472,000. Melton will grow by 60% to 349,000 and Cardinia Shire by 34% to 178,000. MP for the Western Metropolitan Region, Lizzie Blanthorne, wouldn't directly answer if she'd like to see better public transport in her suburbs.
I think our community across the board, across the state, is always interested in the most efficient and effective public transport that we can provide.
The final stage of the suburban rail loop will run from Sunshine to Werribee, but with no funding in the pipeline for it, there are fears it will never be built.
We've got areas that don't have access to bus networks. We've got areas where tens of thousands of people are stuck on unreliable V-line services.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Australians are set to pay more to travel, with the cost of getting a new passport rising. It's one of many new measures outlined in today's budget update, which has no cost of living relief.
Jim Chalmers updates his passport to economic recovery.
Responsible economic management is a defining feature of this budget update.
Partly funded by yet another passport price hike. From next July, 5-year passports up from $164 to $188, 10-year to $374, raising $350 million.
A relatively modest change to passport fees of 15%.
3 times inflation following a 6% rise in January, 21% in 18 months.
I don't think it's fair at all. Everything's gone up. They want to put more up. It's disgusting.
It's not looking great, especially since we plan to go overseas later this year.
No new cost of living relief in the budget update, but another cost increase. Late fees on tax returns no longer themselves tax deductible, raising $500 million a year. The outlook, inflation higher for longer, real wages growth lower.
Didn't help families, didn't help the Reserve Bank in the fight against inflation.
More tax, more spend, more immigration, and more mortgage pain.
After this year's surprise surplus, predicting a small $1.1 billion deficit next year.
We are not yet forecasting a second surplus, but we are within striking distance.
The likely plan, that deficit does become a second surplus in the May budget, with more cost of living relief then, just in time for the next election.
We are getting the budget in much better nick and making more room for our priorities.
The biggest priority? Remaining in power. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Australia has broken ranks with the US and the UK to call for an immediate halt to the war between Hamas and Israel. But the stance is contrary to a number of Australian MPs touring Israeli towns attacked by Hamas on October 7.
It's a deeply confronting experience, but it is also a powerful reminder of the atrocities that occurred.
Those MPs are calling for Hamas to be eliminated.
Australian cricketer Usman Khawaja has been banned from displaying a message in support of Palestine. He planned to take the field against Pakistan in tomorrow's first test with "All lives are equal" written on his shoes.
But what I do want is for everyone who did get offended, somehow, is to ask yourself these questions. Is freedom not for everyone? Are all lives not equal?
But International Cricket Council rules ban written slogans on equipment. Pat Cummins says Khawaja, the team's only Muslim player, didn't intend to cause a fuss.
Communities in far north Queensland are bracing for a direct hit from tropical cyclone Jasper. The Category 2 storm has intensified and is expected to cross the coast in the next hour, dumping 500 millimetres of rain.
The unwanted South Pacific visitor, Jasper, lingering offshore for days, preparing to make landfall with a punch. 130 km/h plus winds that brought down trees and broke fences at the base. Steel bolts snapped. Authorities today upgrading it from Category 1 to 2, escalating warnings as well.
Due to the amount of rain and wind, please shelter in place.
But even as it crossed between Cooktown and Mossman, some seasoned cyclone watchers were refusing to acknowledge the threat.
It's a tropical low, it's not a cyclone.
It's big, but it's not big.
Former Hollywood stuntwoman Tiffany Lynn worked with John Wayne and Marlon Brando. Jasper is a B-grade.
Sit in my hot tub and watch the wind go by.
But while the Bureau reports Jasper may not be record-breaking, it is record-making.
Seeing a tropical cyclone develop in December during an El Niño year is quite rare. In fact, we've not had one on the record since the record's begun.
And some have prepared, moving boats up into inlets for protection. Here, the massive Quicksilver catamarans.
The next 24 hours will be critical.
The Navy got in early too, racing to rescue 4 Weather Bureau staff from remote Willis Island, almost 500 kilometres offshore. It's unsure who stayed behind to get the final shot.
And Sally Guyatt is in Port Douglas. Sally, Jasper is beginning to make landfall.
Certainly is, Mike. Good evening to you. We're really starting to feel the impact and see the ferocity of Jasper. Before we begin, we've received in the last few hours an emergency alert from authorities telling us to take shelter. My cameraman and I are under an awning right now to safely bring you this report. I'm going to get my cameraman Mitch to have a look around at the damage that we're seeing here in Port Douglas. This would normally be the main tourism bustling part of town. It is now covered in tree branches. There are destructive winds, 115 km/h, and rain is pelting down. That rain is going to continue into this evening, and that system progresses over the coastline, so it's going to be a long night for many.
Sally, take care.
The Bruce Lehrmann defamation trial has delved into what a key witness calls murky territory. It centres on a key question about whether Brittany Higgins was justified in fearing she'd lose her job by going to police.
It was one of Brittany Higgins' headline claims.
And a young woman forced to choose between her career and the pursuit of justice.
Today, Bruce Lehrmann's lawyer put it to program producer Angus Llewellyn there were inconsistencies in Higgins' account, whether then Minister Reynolds and her chief of staff were supportive of her going to police, or it meaning she wouldn't have a job. What she was saying was contradictory. It's murky, opaque territory. She was unable to articulate anything that had actually been said or done that put her under pressure not to go to the police. Llewellyn called the minister's chief of staff a very smart, clever, respected operator. So is Minister Reynolds. They wouldn't say something overtly like that, with Higgins talking about a, quote, strange culture of silence. In a recording, Llewellyn tells Brittany Higgins and her fiancé about contacting Lehrmann a reasonable time before the show. I want to suggest that what you were saying to them, don't worry, we'll do a number on Bruce Lehrmann. That's a ridiculous suggestion and completely incorrect. Llewellyn arguing Lehrmann was given plenty of time to respond, reaching out by email and phone 3 days before the show. In a statement, Llewellyn says Lisa Wilkinson originally described this as a, quote, explosive political story and an extraordinary cover-up. She faces her first questions in the witness box tomorrow. Paul Caddack, 7 News.
Veteran rocker Jimmy Barnes is battling a new medical emergency. Grace Fitzgibbon is at St Vincent's Hospital in Sydney. Grace, the star revealed he needed open heart surgery.
Yes, Mike, the 67-year-old Cold Chisel singer has been in hospital with pneumonia since the end of last month. But this morning, Barnesy took to social media to say the bacterial infection I've been battling over the last fortnight has apparently now spread to my heart. It has infected an otherwise healthy valve that was replaced some years ago. Jimmy Barnes says he was due for open heart surgery this afternoon to clear out the infection and put in a clean valve. But despite all of this, Barnesy has still been thinking of his fans, asking people to please be patient with him while his team works out what this could mean for any upcoming shows. Mike?
We wish him well. Grace, thank you.
Well, Tim Watson's here with a look ahead to sport now. Tim, Aussie cricket has a new captain in waiting.
Beck, a World Cup hero, is on the rise as Pat Cummins names his 11 for tomorrow's first test against Pakistan, with one big change. Also, a Magpies star welcomed back with open arms. Ross the Boss expecting big things from a forgotten saint, and there were fireworks at Hawthorn. We'll have the latest soon.
OK, thanks, Tim. See you soon. Firefighters have been forced to take cover from an emergency explosion in a suburban street. That's coming up next on 7 News.
Also ahead, the robot keeping Bayside retirees on their toes.
A serial scammer accused of sending 150,000 bogus text messages a day.
Later, the jaw-dropping donation to the Lost Dogs home that's set to save thousands of animals. And cooler relief is not far away. I'll have the latest weather details soon. 2 Melbourne-made COVID vaccines are in the works to tackle new variants of the virus. It's hoped one will soon be able in nasal form.
The previous vaccinations or the previous infections that people have had with, say, Omicron, they don't really protect against the new escape variants. If we want to end the pandemic, we need to be able to end these waves of infection.
Both vaccines are still in the clinical trial stages.
A suspected serial scammer has been arrested, accused of tens of thousands of bogus text messages a day to innocent victims. Police say he pretended to be from Australia Post and linked to swindle Australians out of millions.
Under arrest, the 39-year-old alleged to be one of Australia's most prolific text scammers, accused of sending an astonishing 17 million fraudulent SMS messages pretending to be from companies like Australia Post or the linked toll provider. Strikeforce police raided his home early yesterday.
Police! Search warrant!
They found SIM boxes that use the internet to send messages from dozens of untraceable SIM cards. Slots on the machines, filled with them, spare cards standing by.
As the telco companies work out what it is and shut them down, they just move on to the next one.
Plus a payment terminal, all consistent with SMS scams, say police. The man's been charged with use equipment connected to network to commit serious offence. Experts say consumers should beware of unexpected texts.
They make a lot of money through susceptible consumers that click on links and give away personal information.
SIM boxes typically send up to 150,000 messages a day, saying things like your package can't deliver, inviting you to follow a link.
It's best to delete that message.
The man arrested has been granted conditional bail to face court on January 17. His equipment has been confiscated. Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
Firefighters have been forced to take cover from exploding gas bottles as flames engulfed a garage in Sydney. The explosions also sent projectiles soaring into the air. The adjoining home was gutted, but no one was injured.
A Bayside aged care home is turning to artificial intelligence to help keep residents happy. A robot that can hold its own in a conversation is quickly gaining popularity as a regular visitor.
At Montclair Aged Care, entertainer Frank is upstaged by a robot half his height.
He did the monster man.
This is Abby. She comes from a 3D printer, can hold conversation, blow bubbles, and keep a crowd of elderly residents entertained.
I'm talking platypuses, deer, yabbies in the lake, you name it.
Abby is the creation of mechatronics engineer Grace Brown, on a mission to defeat loneliness.
We're using technology and building a product that can help, improve the quality of lives for people who are often very overlooked.
The $10,000 robot's doing its job.
Without doing things like the STEM program and Abby, they'd be still doing bingo and sing-alongs. So I think aged care is more than that.
Abby's creator acknowledges some parallels with Megan.
I won't let anything harm you.
A high-tech killer robot in a Hollywood horror movie.
I won't lie, I love the movie. Similar concept, but not evil.
No death stares here. Abby, what are your hopes and dreams?
Well, one of my dreams is to be upgraded with the latest AI technology, so I can do even more amazing things.
Grace is working on it.
I believe that within the next decade that humanoid robots will be as prevalent as dogs.
Just think of all the problems you could solve and all the wisdom you could impart.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
The Allen government has unveiled this year's 3-year-old kinder kits to keep children entertained at home.
Books, they include crayons, they include felt puppets are a new addition this year.
The new kinder recruits also received 2 books by Australian authors.
Netball's bitter civil war is finally over with star players cashing in. That's next.
Also ahead on 7 News, a police officer overpowered as a takedown goes wrong.
A Melbourne dad becomes patient zero in a high-tech breakthrough on Crohn's disease.
See the hit list of the most sought-after homes for sale in Victoria.
And a heartwarming reunion for the Geelong baby born in the middle of a street. Netball's bitter dispute has come to an end, with players winning an 11% pay rise over 3 years. They'll also receive a 20% share of any sponsorship revenue.
Many people have worked very hard to get to today.
It's going to be really incredible, I think, to see what this means for the future.
The netball pay deal is dwarfed by the country's 2 major codes. AFLW players recently secured a 77% pay rise over 5 years, while female cricketers landed a 66% pay boost over 5 years.
An Australian-designed medical invention is giving new hope to sufferers of Crohn's disease. A Melbourne dad has undergone world-first surgery for an implant using electrical stimulation to prevent gut damage.
This small battery and cable could unlock a cure for Crohn's sufferers.
To get to the point where we've been able to actually take this from proof of concept to the first in human trial has been incredibly awesome.
A joint project between the Florey and Bionics Institutes. The device sends electrical pulses to the nerve which controls digestion, triggering defences that stop inflammation in the gut.
We're just nudging the body just a little bit in the right direction so the body can heal itself.
In a world first, Melbourne father of 2, Anthony Becker, had the device implanted via keyhole surgery at the Austin Hospital 3 weeks ago.
Best case scenario, my inflammation doesn't come back at all, and I basically don't need to have the infusions anymore.
We believe that this could be life-changing for these patients.
For the next stage of the clinical trial, the Austin Hospital needs another 12 patients who would benefit from the device. After surgery, they'll be closely monitored by researchers for 18 months. Anthony Becker hopes the set-and-forget new treatment will allow him less time in hospital and more with his young family. Around 80% of Crohn's sufferers eventually need surgery.
If I can do a little bit of something to help and maybe help these people have a normal life, or a bit more normal like I have, then yeah, that's something I'd like to do.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
A police officer has been overpowered while making an arrest on the Gold Coast.
He was drug affected, so obviously that affected his strength and his attitude at the time. But she did a fantastic job. But certainly that would be confronting.
The officer was treated for a head injury and cuts. A loaded revolver and ammunition was found in the car.
Time now for a check on the markets with Angela Cox and Anja. Good day for the resources sector.
That's right, the ASX 200 closed 23 points higher. Strong iron ore prices pushing Fortescue and Rio Tinto to new share price highs. Sigma Healthcare shares surged after a merger deal with Chemist Warehouse. Health insurer NIB also performed well. The Australian dollar is buying 65 US cents and $1.07 New Zealand. There's that iron ore price, $135 US a tonne, defying expectations. Oil continues its 7-week decline. And new data shows 37% of Australians are still working from home. That's down from 40% at the height of the pandemic, but still much higher than before COVID. Most are managers and professionals, the trend not so common in other occupations.
Ange, thank you. 4 of the country's 10 most sought-after homes are in Victoria. 82,000 people viewed a $24 million Hawthorn property on the Yarra River via realestate.com. The 5-bedroom property sold in June this year. It came in equal second with a $22 million waterfront house in Sorrento. The other most popular properties were also in the east, with a retreat-style house in Olinda receiving 73,000 clicks on its listing. There was similar interest for a Palm Springs-style home on New Street, Brighton.
A Geelong mother has given birth in the middle of a street as her husband was forced to turn traffic controller. This morning, the family was reunited with the quick-thinking paramedic who helped deliver their baby.
2-week-old Madison, blissfully unaware of the commotion she caused.
She definitely marches to the beat of her own drum.
Today, meeting the paramedic who helped bring her into the world.
Catherine did all the work. I was just there to support her.
Catherine Robbins was expecting a long labour, but Madison had other ideas.
I was like, yeah, we can make it in the car, it's fine. I took 2 steps and went, call the ambulance.
Paramedics arrived just in time.
Elected to move towards the ambulance and we could only get so far.
I got up onto the stretcher and I've been told that apparently I death stared somebody and said, oh, I need to push. Someone said, wow, the head's out. And I went, what?
It all happened so fast, husband Nick was left to direct traffic on the street outside their Wandunna Heights home.
As you can see, it's school time, so it's quite busy, so there's not enough room for 2 cars to get around with a stretcher blocking half of it. I think there was one schoolboy who probably copped an eyeful.
Mrs. Robbins and baby Madison were able to leave Geelong Hospital just 6 hours after being admitted, ready to start their new chapter as a family of 4.
I think every birthday someone will mention something about a paramedic or an ambulance or being born in the middle of the road.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Well done, everyone. The Lost Dogs home has been blown away by a jaw-dropping act of generosity from a 99-year-old. Details next.
Also ahead on 7 News, see how a snorkeler escaped the jaws of death.
Families in Melbourne southeast toasting a childcare lifeline.
And revealing the most searched Google topics of the year. Parents in Melbourne's southeast have been given an extra 2 months to find new childcare centres for their children. Glenara Council backed down on plans to immediately close 3 centres in Caulfield, Carnegie and Murrumbeena. The Mayor says Council has listened to the community and the centres will now close on March 28.
An Italian backpacker has escaped from the jaws of a shark during a snorkelling expedition in Queensland.
The 20-year-old's friend watched the horror unfold from the sand and feared the worst.
Man versus wild caught on camera. This is the moment 20-year-old Matteo Mariotti's life flashed before his eyes.
I saw everything from the shore. I see every moment.
Matteo and fellow backpacker Tommaso Agosti were driving from Cairns to the Gold Coast. Both keen lovers of the ocean, they stopped at the coastal town of 1770.
I didn't want to go inside the water. I just told him maybe it was dangerous.
And it was. Matteo was attacked by a tiger shark in shallow waters.
It was yelling me many times to help. I tried to put something on his leg, because at the first moment I saw the leg was up.
He was airlifted to hospital where his leg was amputated, telling Italian media,
"My leg hurts a lot. I'm very tired. I have a hard time eating, but I'll be okay. I love all of you a lot."
A once-in-a-lifetime holiday they'd rather forget. Anna McGraw, 7 News.
A 99-year-old woman has left behind more than $3 million to the Lost Dogs home. Her record-breaking donation will be used to rebuild a key shelter in Melbourne's southeast.
All of these delightful dogs depend on hefty handouts, but no one was expecting a $3.6 million parting gift.
Wonderful surprise for us and a beautiful way to help us care for more animals.
Joy Christensen died in 2020 at the ripe old age of 99.
She was brought up on a cattle farm in regional Victoria, so I think she's always been surrounded by pets and animals, and she had a very deep respect for them.
A widow with no siblings or children, the money came from the sale of her Brighton home, money that will now improve the Lost Dogs facility in Cranbourne.
We'd love to be able to build a new veterinary clinic and also a new adoption centre there.
Mrs Christensen had adopted animals from the home and told them in 2015, "I want the home to be able to continue the wonderful and dedicated work they are doing to help all lost innocent animals. It's important for me to know that all the lost animals are well cared for and given a second chance in a happy home."
Joy by name, joy by nature. She's going to bring so much joy to thousands and thousands of animals into the future. What a beautiful legacy for Joy to have left.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
The Optus outage was the top news event Australians Googled this year, with 10 million customers affected. The most searched Australian was Sam Kerr during the Matildas Women's World Cup. The event's popularity helped it take out the #1 how-to question with how to watch the Women's World Cup. And the movie Oppenheimer took out the top spot in the battle of the blockbusters, followed by the Barbie movie.
Well, Tim Watson's back with sport now. Tim, Usman Khawaja has just spoken on his hard stance.
He has, Beck. The Aussie opener is defiant and disturbed. That's next as Pat Cummins names his 11 and his potential successor as Australian captain. Also, the D's coach puts his foot down in pursuit of final success. The Hawks bracing for a financial blow as a Hawks legend fires up, and an Aussie's clutch moment in the NBA. Usman Khawaja has just spoken out after being forced to backtrack on his planned first test protest. Aussie captain Pat Cummins throwing his support behind the emotional opener.
Close to tears, Usman Khawaja speaks after being told his "all lives are equal" shoe slogan crossed the line between sport and politics.
The ICC have told me that I can't wear my shoes on field because they believe it's a political statement under their guidelines. I don't believe it is so.
Players and team officials shall not be permitted to wear, display or otherwise convey personal messages on their clothing or equipment, and not use cricket as a platform to draw attention to potentially divisive political issues. Cricket Australia says we support the right of our players to express personal opinions, but the ICC has rules in place which prohibit the display of personal messages, which we expect the players to uphold.
What I've written on my shoes isn't political. I'm not taking sides. I will respect their view and decision, but I will fight it and seek to gain approval.
I think everyone in our team has their own individual thoughts, and I love that.
It's his individual right to do that on his own platform, but on the Australian cricket platform, while he's representing Australia, he has no right to do it.
No?
No, nil, zero.
If me saying all lives are equal has resulted in people being offended to the point where they're calling me up and telling me off, well, isn't that the bigger problem?
Just last summer, Australia was allowed to take a knee in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, but Khawaja's shoe stance deemed a no-go area. No room for Cameron Green in the first Test 11 or Lance Morris. Nathan Lyon, the only change from the last Ashes Test. A glimpse at who might be Cummins' successor. Travis Head named co-vice captain.
Whilst nothing's imminent, we feel like we've got some responsibility to future-proof the team.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
And tonight it's the Stars in action at the MCG up against the Perth Scorchers, with live coverage coming up straight after the news. To football now, and St Kilda coach Ross Lyon says Tim Membry is blossoming after a shock withdrawal from the finals due to a personal health matter. The Saints gearing up for their forward line to finally click again in 2024.
An honest update on St Kilda's star forward. Tim Membry sat out today but will be back to his best in 2024.
Basically hasn't missed a session. He's 4 kilos lighter, back to his sort of fighting weight, so to speak, what he's been previous years.
The 29-year-old played 7 games last season battling injury, but will reunite with Max King next year. He'll be back to full training from shoulder surgery after Christmas. Ross Lyon today doing the heavy lifting, still thinking about last year's finals loss as he backs a new partnership with Westinghouse.
A few Jack Daniels or something. It does feel like that at times. Yeah, the final, I felt like reaching for one, but yeah.
After 2 consecutive years of straight sets finals exits, Simon Goodwin says success will come by focusing off-field first.
We've got to focus on creating the winning behaviours that will stand up in finals. So we're not going to live under a rock. We're going to look for the opportunities, we're going to look for the growth, we're going to increase our connection, we're going to drive winning behaviours.
Toby Nankervis believes he's the right man to lead the Tigers into 2024, ready to be Richmond's solo captain after Dylan Grimes stepped down.
Personally, I feel like I'm in a really good spot to be sole captain. I don't think I would take the job on if I didn't think that. And yeah, I'm really well placed. I've got great support around me, so I'm really looking forward to it.
And Collingwood has welcomed back Dan McStay to training, the key forward recovering from ACL surgery. Kate Massey, 7 News.
Today's devastating news out of the Bulldogs is set to have ramifications on Bailey Smith's contract. Returning to Mitch Cleary now. Mitch, the star was heading into his final year.
And Tim, he'll undergo surgery early next week. Clubs like Hawthorn, Collingwood and Geelong to watch that recovery closely as they explore interest and potentially contracts for the star 23-year-old. Meantime, at Hawthorn, they've set aside $1.5 million for legal fees and potential payouts as the Human Rights Commission matter drags on into the new year. Club legend Don Scott last night turning chief antagonist, dominating the microphone at the club's AGM.
You have 3 members who have got conflicts on the board right at this moment. How do you handle those situations?
It's handled very professionally and in an adult way, Dom.
You're not giving answers.
Yeah, right. I'm happy to have a talk with you offline, Dom. I think we're at the point now where we should wind it up.
And Melbourne has commissioned a feasibility study on the potential of moving the club's headquarters to the Caulfield Racecourse. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. Aussie basketball star Dante Exum scored a season-high 26 points against LeBron James and the Lakers.
Exum 3, bullseye!
He even got a hug from Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban after the 2-point win. Manchester United has been knocked out of the Champions League after a 1-0 loss to Bayern Munich.
Surely puts to bed any lingering hopes they have of staying in the Champions League.
Arsenal is already through to the knockout stage and drew 1-1 with Dutch side PSV. And that is sport.
OK, thanks, Tim. Jane Bunn joins us now. And Jane, is this the end of the Storms?
Mike, a cool change is blowing through and that clears the storms, making it much more comfortable. I'll have full details next. Hello again. A cool change is beginning to sweep through. After that, there's no more storms. As the sky lit up overnight, it was hot and incredibly humid. 28 late in the evening, only falling to 25 in that late storm. And that 25 felt like 30 degrees thanks to light winds and high humidity. That's what we tried to sleep through. The temperature eventually dropped to 21.5. Today, skyrocketed back up to 33.7. Again, the uncomfortable combination of hot, humid and unsettled. The coolest spot today was the Mornington Peninsula. The rest up and over 30. With the high humidity, it feels even hotter in a lull in the wind. Storms picked up again late morning and continued at times this afternoon. Coming through in bands, affecting more areas, then hit and miss, impacting only those in their path. The risk of thunderstorms is about to come to an end as a cool change blows through. That's due around 8 to 9 p.m. That'll reduce the humidity, making it a bit more refreshing. It's 34 now in the city, but the cool change has reached Geelong. It is now a lovely 22. Showers do follow later tonight, just our regular Melbourne-style weather. Storms are impacting large parts of the state, generally in bands with and ahead of this trough. In behind it, it turns cooler and less humid. It was only 35 in Mildura today. Bairnsdale was hotter than the Mallee. The severe storm Rissone is gradually moving eastwards with the trough. In the yellow area, the risk of large hail, damaging winds and heavy rain leading to flash flooding. Yarrawonga gusted 106 k's an hour in the outflow from a storm mid-afternoon. Tropical air from Queensland is being funnelled right down through here to Victoria, running into this trough line, creating hot and humid, unsettled weather. On the other side of the trough, it's milder. On the other side of a following front, it is cooler later in the week. Meanwhile, Cyclone Jasper does weaken as it heads inland, but still brings plenty of rain to those in its path. Around the nation tomorrow, Sydney, a hot 37, the risk of severe storms. A few millimetres in showers for Adelaide, warm and dry in Perth and Brisbane. To Victoria, the last of our storms, here they go. They clear the far east early, then all over. Back to regular programming. Warm in the north, cool to mild in the south. Our usual showers about parts of the south, much less humid in a westerly wind. Closer in, overnight showers clear outer eastern suburbs before 9 a.m. The day, dry throughout. A mix of sun and cloud, and not hot or cold, it's just right. Westerly winds drive that humidity away. Tomorrow should be quite pleasant, a top of 25. Dry and partly cloudy, showers pre-dawn and again after dark. On the 8-day outlook, here's the cool part of the roller coaster. Cool but not cold this time. Friday, 21, 22 on Saturday. There's the odd shower. It should be dry for much of the time, a mix of sun and cloud. Heating up on Monday, a late cool change, back down to 21 Tuesday. A bit more pleasant tomorrow, dry all day, a mix of sun and cloud. We'll peak at 25 and much less humid.
Good.
OK, thanks, Jane. And that's 7 News for this Wednesday. We'll have updates throughout the night.
For now, from the 7 News team, please take care. Good night.
Thank you.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.